I am now going to take up the first chapter of the last module, which is networking tools. So, what is meant by networking? Networking is a sort of communication over some means. The means can be internet or now let's say I am going to meet some person through someone. That is also a form of networking. So, in Unix, when I say networking, it is based on uh, the network inside the internet and different forms of communication that can be possible. So firstly, let's start with something called as TCP/IP. TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol and IP stands for Internet Protocol. So first, what is the meaning of a protocol? Protocol means a set of rules. So someone has framed a set of rules and we all follow it so that communication happens effectively. So before we go into what is TCP/IP, let's see what are the basic terminologies that are used. So in a network, a computer is known as a host. So you always have host name or sometimes you also use something called as a node. So every host has a host name which is unique throughout the network. So you cannot have the same host name for two systems. So it is unique. To know your machine's host name, you know this command already. Use the host name command. So type host name and you will know which is the name of your host. How does this TCP/IP work? It is a packet switching system. That means when I say data is transferred from, let's say, A to B, it is transferred in the form of packets. So when I say packets, there is no literal meaning as in a packet of whatever package coming, but our data is sent in the form of packets. So what is there in this packet? Or in a packet switched network, there is no dedicated connection between sender and receiver. So there is no rule that it has to go through this path itself. No, there's nothing like that. It has to reach from the sender to the receiver. That is all that is intended here. How is this data broken? The data is broken into packets and each packet is provided with a header. Now this header is something like a name. It is an indication saying that this packet is for this person or this data contains this information which is going to serve some person somewhere. This header contains the sequence number and a checksum, which is a simple number determining the exact information in the packet. So it contains one number called as a sequence number because when I say I'm transferring data from packet A to packet B, from sender A to sender B, data can be transferred in multiple packets. So these packets have to it may not go in order. So a packet may reach faster, a packet may reach slower. So to indicate which packet has to come after what, there is a sequence number attached along with the packet in the form of a header and a checksum. So this checksum part and all, you will be learning it in detail in computer networks, where checksum is basically used for seeing whether whatever was sent is the same as whatever is received. So there should be no manipulation of data in between. So this checksum is something like a verification code. So the sender sends the checksum and the receiver also has to receive the same checksum so that they know that whatever information was sent, the same thing is received. And this checksum is a simple number determining the exact information in the packet. These packets are put inside envelopes. The senders and recipients' addresses are written on them and the packets are sent on their way. So when I say put inside envelopes, it's not like literally how we send letters, not like that. Just that they are secured and they have some address related to where they are supposed to be sent and received. As packets travel along a vast network like the internet, they encounter routers everywhere. Now let's say I'm sending some parcel from Bangalore to Chennai. So on the way, there are different places that come across that encounter the exact route that is supposed to reach Chennai. Same way here, when packets travel, in between there are routers which enhance where they are supposed to be reaching. So when I say routers, routers are nothing but special computers or intelligent devices that look at the envelope addresses and then determine the most efficient route each packet has to take to move closer to its destination. So routing is nothing but uh, making the packet go in such a way that our information or data, whatever is sent, reaches the receiver in a short or efficient way. What are some of the features of TCP? So there are different protocols. One is TCP. There's something called as UDP, which is User Datagram Protocol. So all this you will be learning in detail in networks, but just for your information in Unix, we have TCP and its basics. So what are the features? A protocol okay, I had already told you about this. What is a protocol? It is simply a set of rules that are used by two machines to talk to one another or for communication to happen. TCP/IP stands for Transmission Control Protocol or Internet Protocol. What are the features they have? So one of the most important feature of TCP is it is independent of vendor, type of machine and operating system. So it does not depend on any of this. It is independent. That means which makes it more user friendly and also easy to use. Delivery of data in multiple packets. So if I have large data to be sent, I don't have to send one single packet that contains all the data. So if I try to send one single packet that contains all data, there is a very high chance that I might lose some data in between. Instead, I'll divide the packet into multiple packets and send it so that it goes, even if it goes slowly, it will reach to the correct destination. And most important point is reliability of transmission. So TCP is a reliable protocol. And why is it reliable? Because it has facilities for error control. So even if there is an error, there are mechanisms for us to find out how we can rectify those errors. So there is something called as error mechanism techniques. So you have something called as uh, what is that? Checksum. You have many other techniques for error correction and error detection. Ability to divert data immediately through the other routes if one or more parts of the network went down. So if, let's say, one route is faulty, then there should be another uh, route in which the data can be or the packet can be sent. So TCP has this ability to divert data. Facility to connect new subnetworks without significant disruption of services. So while there is packet transfer happening, you can add more subnetworks which will not disturb the network or which will not disturb services, that is, packets transferred. What are these IP addresses? So, like how we have addresses to our homes, each URL or each host in the network has an IP address. So, for us, it is easy to communicate with names, but the system usually understands numbers better than names. So, instead of IP address, we have something called as domain names. So why domain names are important? Because each of these host names or each of these networks have a number associated with them. We cannot remember all those numbers. Now let's say google.com. Now google.com has a specific IP. Now instead of remembering one IP for Google, one IP for Facebook, one IP for YouTube, I can simply use names through which I can uh, go to that website and perform my work. So apart from the host name, every host in the network has an address called the IP address, which is used by other machines to communicate with it. So these are again for communication. what is this address? Or this address has a address format. This address is a series of 4-dot delimited numbers called octets. So you have 1, 2, 3 dots here separating 4 numbers. So these numbers are called as octets, which look like this. So the maximum value of each octet is 255. So you can have 255.255.255.255. This is the maximum that you can have. You cannot have anything more than this. The TCP applications can address a host by its host name as well as its IP address. So instead of remembering the IP address, you can also host it with the host name. The network administrator sets the IP address of a host to make it unique not only within the network but also in all the connected networks. So if you have tried to connect to some network in which the IP already exists, so sometimes you get a message saying there is an IP conflict. That means two systems are using the same IP address. Usually we prefer to have different. What are daemons and ports? Any application is split into a server and a client component, two separate programs themselves. So any application will have two forms, two parts basically. One is the client part and the other one is the server part. The web server's job is to send an HTML document which the client software formats on the user's screen. So the communication happens from a client to the server. The server programs are called daemons in Unix. They are not associated with any terminal and always run in the background listening for input from the clients. So anything that happens in the background are called as daemons. How does an FTP packet know that it has to connect to another FTP application at the other end and not to a web browser? So how do you know that where it should connect and not to the web browser? So specifying the IP address is not enough. Along with that, you have to include a port number as well. This number is always associated with the FTP service so that the packet reaches the FTP server. So it has to know, it's not enough if I simply send information to your class, okay? Let's say I had asked you to submit assignment before itself, and then I'm saying submit the assignment. Now for whom is it? It has to be for that particular student who has not submitted the assignment. So same way here, when I'm specifying an address, I have to specify for whom or whom am I trying to communicate there. So I have to specify a port number. So these port numbers are like telephone exchange numbers in an office. So also similar to your STD codes if you have. So let's say I want to call a number to a different in a different state. So I have to include the STD code in order for me to reach that person. So same way here, they have given an example of telephone exchange numbers in an office. So an office can have n number of telephones. So to reach one particular person in that office, I should know the extension of that person as well to reach him appropriately. How can you resolve IP addresses? Resolving IP addresses is how can I try to remember those IP addresses, or is there any alternative through which I can use the same domain but without having to remember the IP address? So IP addresses are used by many utilities like Telnet and FTP. So basically these are Telnet and FTP are used for remote connections. To connect a remote site with the IP address 202.54.37.108, you can use these applications. So you can use both FTP and Telnet and just specify which is the IP address you want to connect. Users find numbers difficult to remember, while network software understands only numbers. All machines in a network have names, And applications usually access these machines by their host names rather than their IP addresses. So like I said, we understand names better than the numbers, but machines understand numbers better than names. So it is like a midway where we use names and the systems use numbers. A set of routines linked to the application called the resolver translates the name into its corresponding IP address. So if I specify a name that has to be made understandable to the machine, who does this? The resolver does this. So the names take two simple forms. A simple name which can be used by hosts to communicate among themselves in a small network. In such networks, you can connect to a host Saturn using the commands like these. So you can simply type FTP Saturn or Telnet Saturn. Now Saturn is the name understood by you. It cannot be understood by the machine. So for the machine to understand, the resolver will look up in this location to find out the IP address, and the command will then use it to connect to the host. So domain names are something like google.com, youtube.com. So like that. A fully qualified domain name, FQDN, where the host name is a component. So host name is this. ftp.download.com is an FQDN where com is a domain, download is a subdomain, and FTP is the host name. The resolver in this case will look up a decentralized database to determine the IP address of this FQDN. This database belongs to the domain name system and is normally maintained on separate machines that could be spread across the globe. So this can be accessed from anywhere, and the same domain name will be accessed even if you do it from any part of the globe. Next we have ping. So suppose I'm trying to check whether I am able to communicate with person B. Then I can use this ping command to check if I can communicate with that person. So it is as good as uh, I will tell you, if you have any doubts, ping me. That means you have to text me or put a message to me or communicate with me so that I can enhance whatever your doubt is, whatever I can clarify your doubt. Same way here in the network also you can use ping. To operate in a network, a host must be equipped with a network interface card. So this is one component that is inside your system for the communication to happen. That is to be configured and assigned an IP address. You can then use ping to send packets to a machine known to be working in the network. The command sends 56-byte packets to a remote destination which answers back on the receipt. So you can simply type ping -s earth. So I'm trying to ping, or I'm trying to communicate with this earth. So these are simply names given. Next is telnet. Telnet is used for remote login. Let's say I want to log into another system sitting here without having to go to that actual location. Then I can do it using this command telnet. The telnet command allows you to log on to a remote machine. If you have an account on a host in a local network, you can use telnet with the host name or the IP address as argument. So if you don't remember this IP address here, if you don't remember this IP address, you can simply specify the host name as well. So when you give telnet and the IP address, it is trying to connect to this IP address. So when it has finished connecting, it shows that connected to 192.168. So here it is connected to this IP address specified. So to stop connection, you can just press the caret symbol followed by the right brace. You can now enter your login name at this prompt and then password to gain access to the remote machine. Obviously, you cannot uh, like randomly log into a remote machine without logging in through your credentials. So as long as you are logged in, anything you type is sent to the remote machine and your machine acts as a dumb terminal. After you have finished, you can press Ctrl D or type exit to log out and return to your local shell. Next is FTP. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. Basically, if you have any files to transfer, then you can use the File Transfer Protocol. FTP command is used to transfer files between hosts. It offers a number of Unix-like directory-oriented services, and many of its commands have similar names. Like Telnet, FTP can also be invoked with or without addresses. So you can simply specify the host name or you can specify the address. So see here, I have just specified FTP Saturn and it'll say connected to Saturn and it'll give me the details. Then I have to enter my username and password. So because I am trying to log in, I am performing these operations. You can type quit or buy to exit from FTP or to exit remote connection basically. How can you handle files and directories using FTP? So FTP has all the basic facilities needed to handle files and directories on the remote machine like PWD, LS, CD, MKDIR, RMDIR, and CHMOD. You can delete a single file using delete and multiple files using mdelete or rename a file using rename. However, you should remember one thing, that these commands apply only to the remote machine and not to the local machine. If you have to use the operating system commands on the local machine, then you have to use the exclamation symbol in the usual manner. So when you're trying to do this, you should remember that it is applicable only to the remote machine and not your local machine. Transferring files. So what kind of files can you transfer? You can transfer any kind of files, but basically there are two different types. For the purpose of transfer, file can be seen as belonging to two types, ASCII and binary. All executables, graphics, word processing, and multimedia files belong to the binary type. How do you upload this file? You can upload files using the put and input command. The put command sends a single file to the remote machine and the input command can be used for multiple files. Downloading can be done by get and mget. To download files from the remote machine, use the get, and for multiple files, use the mget command similar to your uploading, put and input. Last concept is anonymous FTP. So on the internet, there are several anonymous FTP sites which offer trial and public domain software for downloading. Suppose you want to download some file anonymously, then you can use anonymous FTP. You can log on to such a site using the account anonymous and your email address as password. You can only download files from an anonymous FTP site. So this is just extra information about anonymous FTP. So this completes chapter 17 of module 5.